It's a scary problem that just isn't going away. Hit and run vehicle crashes. How can you protect yourself and your family? And there was a recent decision from the Michigan Court of Appeals for those involved in these kinds of crashes that Tom Sinas from Sinas Dramis Law Firm is going to break down for us. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. The simple question, if anyone is ever involved in an auto crash, is it ever legal to just drive away from that crash?
Simple answer, no, it's not. We have a criminal statute that makes it a requirement for people to do the obvious, natural, human, neighborly thing. Stop. Make sure that the accident is reported to the police. As a matter of fact, that same statute goes on to say that if you don't do that, you don't stop and report the matter to the police, and someone is seriously hurt, that is actually a felony that's punishable by up to 5 years in prison. If someone is killed, that is a felony that is punishable by up to 15 years in prison. So please stop, do the right thing, make sure that the police are called.
Unfortunately, hit and run crashes and injuries still occur. How can people protect themselves financially from that?
Great question. 3 words: uninsured motorist coverage. It's a funny phrase that when people hear it, they think, why would I purchase that? I have insurance, so I'm not uninsured. I don't need to insure myself more than once. What uninsured motorist coverage is insurance that you purchase to protect you from another careless driver who doesn't have insurance. And what nearly all uninsured motorist policies say is that there are certain definitions of what is an uninsured motorist. And commonly, an uninsured motorist under an uninsured motorist policy is a hit and run driver. Because, of course, you don't know who that person is if they committed that criminal offense of fleeing. And so uninsured motorist coverage includes hit and run circumstances. So if you're the victim of a hit and run driver, not only are you going to have your no-fault benefits likely through your own insurance company, but if you've purchased uninsured motorist coverage, then your claim for those changes in your quality of life, those are going to be through your own insurance policy under your uninsured motorist coverage component. And this coverage is very affordable. And I encourage people to not only buy it, but to purchase as much of it as they can, because of course, you never know when something terrible is going to happen. You can't necessarily control it. And you certainly can't control whether the person stops or whether that person has insurance. And that's why uninsured motorist coverage is so important, particularly in the context of hit and runs.
Well, as we mentioned at the beginning of this segment, the Michigan Court of Appeals decision, just recently, a decision that affects people involved in these types of crashes. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. It's a very unusual case, maybe not all that common of a set of circumstances, but it's something that everybody should be aware of. So this was a case where 2 cars were involved in a crash. The 2 vehicles pulled over on the side of the road. The 2 drivers spoke to each other. They decided they didn't need to call the police, and they decided that they didn't need to exchange information because the damage to the vehicles didn't appear substantial. Well, a bit later, one of the people in one of the vehicles realized that they had injuries that maybe they didn't know of at the time of the crash. And yet that other vehicle was long gone. And because they didn't exchange information, they didn't know anything about that driver or its insurance coverage or anything like that. So the person who was hurt made a claim for uninsured motorist coverage, saying, I was a victim of a hit and run driver. And so the Court of Appeals had to address this question, and this is how they worded it. Does the phrase hit and run under an automobile insurance policy include a vehicle that is pulled over after hitting another vehicle? The drivers of both vehicles exit the cars and inspect the vehicles for damage and mutually conclude that because no damage exists, there's no need to contact the police or exchange information. And the court said, no, that is not a hit and run. And so the person who was injured could not make a claim under that uninsured motorist coverage section of their policy. So what is the takeaway here? Well, exchange information. It's the obvious thing to do. Had that information been exchanged, then the person who was hurt could figure out whether the other car involved had insurance, and they wouldn't have been having to make this hit and run type claim. So if you're involved in a crash with someone else, exchange information about who they are, about who their insurance is. And as we started this segment, involve the police, especially if you believe that someone has been hurt.
Well, to recap all of this, Tom, first, don't drive away. Stay and make sure you exchange the information and uninsured motor coverage. It's a pretty inexpensive way to protect yourself and your family. If people have any questions about these, where can they go?
They can find us online at www.sinusdramis.com. Shoot us an email at info@sinusdramis.com or give us a call in West Michigan at 616-301-3333.